Hello and welcome to Grace Unscripted, where we share stories of the people in and around Grace Church without any script, just real, raw conversations about life change through Jesus. I'm your host, Audrey Wallace, and today I'm hanging out with Christine Dolan. Christine Dolan and I have slightly intersected, but this was my first time really sitting down and chatting with her and loved hearing her story, and I know that you are going to as well. And just as I think back at some words that really stood out from what she shared, one of the things is just steps of obedience, small steps of obedience, big steps of obedience, and they might even feel like steps of stubbornness in the moment when you're like, fine, I'll do this. But then later they lead to learning, they lead to blessing. And as you look back and let go of the striving, let go of the control, and let go of what you think your path is going to be, you can truly see how God is walking alongside of you. Christine.
All right.
Hi.
Hi.
Welcome to Unscripted.
Thank you. Good to be here.
I am very excited. Here's how I feel about you. Can I tell you how I feel about you?
Sure.
I feel like when I see you across a crowded room, I'm like, I want to know that person. There was that day, remember at the retreat when we were kind of wearing the same outfit? We both kind of had like flowy jeans on and a cute Christian tee. And I was just like, I just feel like I should know her more. So I'm really excited to do this.
That's so fun to hear. I feel the same way about you, especially when I see your you and your husband working together in community and backyard space, and I think a little bit of that'll come out in my story. But it's
cool.
It's like the way you connect people, and there's something that I think is super fun. So I'm glad we're getting this time.
Maybe there's something more to this little unscripted day. Let's find out. Okay, cool. So I always love to start at the beginning, and I literally don't know. I mean, you and I have never sat down and talked one-on-one before, although we've been involved in some similar things through the women's retreat and such. But where did you grow up?
I grew up in Canton, Ohio. So I have a brother, and he's a few years younger, but pretty normal childhood. And we went to church every Sunday.
What kind of church did you go to?
So it was a denominational church, Lutheran. And we were there, and just a pretty normal life. And I guess I would say, though, it was just religion as far as my relationship with God, So we went every Sunday, and my friends considered me the religious one. But I kind of, I went and checked the box, but it wasn't much more than that.
Just that routine, the ritual.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and I grew up in the Methodist church, so kind of a similar-ish sort of thing, right? And Sunday school, right? Did you go into Sunday school and heard Bible stories and such, but maybe not a lot of you can have Jesus as your personal savior. That for me at least, was that what it was like for you, as far as the teaching goes?
It was similar, yes. Yeah, Sunday school, and then, sit in church until we got older and just sat in church. But I was a bit of a book nerd, so I was reading in church instead of until maybe I was 12 or 13, and my mom and dad were like, "You can't read in church anymore. You really need to listen."
Nancy Drew novels or the Bible?
Nancy Drew, no, Trixie Belden, whatever was
Ramona.
Yes, all of those.
Wow.
So I was definitely not.
Sure, you're not sitting there listening.
I was there because I was supposed to be there, and I did love Jesus, but even I knew that. But I also, when it came to God, I was like, he seems kind of scary and mean. So that was kind of my impression. Jesus, I knew he died for me.
Okay.
But I didn't quite understand back then. And what I would say as I went into high school and college, because I kind of wasn't a priority, when I went into college. But I was like, why does what somebody did all these years ago impact me? Why does the fact that Adam ate this apple really impact me today? So it didn't sink in, if that makes sense.
What did you study in college?
My undergrad was public relations.
Interesting.
So,
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you ever have a professor or any kind of a group there, challenge your faith or anything like that when you were in college?
Well, when I was in college, and I was at Ohio State, and then I finished up at Kent, and I took some different courses where it challenged me to think about my faith more because it was kind of so off what I had learned that I had to decide, who I was going to be and which way I was going to go. And when I went off to college, I wasn't going to church. I'd go when I came home, but it was kind of like, I went because that's what we did as a family. But once I had my own choices and got into the college rhythm, it wasn't the priority.
That's interesting because the routine was your home family church, not your personal relationship with Jesus that you would pursue no matter where you went, maybe. I don't know, I'm putting words in your mouth here a little bit, but is that a little bit what it was like?
Yeah, because I thought, I really was very confused. And I think, I had, most of my friends didn't go to church.
Growing up?
Growing up.
Okay.
So one friend did who was Catholic, like maybe, and then she invited me once to some youth thing. But other than that, I just wasn't really exposed to, like, there's one person I can think of that I knew who was walking maybe more in their faith or was more open, but it just wasn't in my circle of friends to be like it is today.
Making choices through the lens of the Bible or through Jesus or anything.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, and that wasn't, and my parents were, like, they were doing the absolute best that they could because that's what they, saw. And they made the commitment. They wanted to have their family in church and knew that faith was important. And so we were faithfully there. It just wasn't discussed throughout the week that much, if that makes sense.
Right, yeah,
so
I can totally relate
traditional
to that.
prayers and was there, but it just was the religion and some of that more than this personal relationship. That was the difference. Yeah.
So as a teenager, I would imagine you believed in God, and that was part of your life, but did you, what were you involved in? Did you run off the rails at all? What was that like for you in your teenage years, especially if your influences were not pursuing Jesus?
Right. I would say I felt like there was one person it was a very small church, that there was one person there, and he was a boy a year older, but he was a really good kid. And I felt like I showed up at church, and the rest of the week I was just kind of doing what I wanted to do. And wasn't I was involved in things. It wasn't a bad kid, but I also wanted to experience the world and all that the world offered. So I felt like it was a little bit of, I always called him like a Jiminy Cricket. I'd show up on Sunday, and I'd know there's maybe another way I could be living, but it also felt a little old-fashioned. And in my teenage mind back then, I was more thinking that, maybe this is just kind of an old-fashioned morality that grown-ups are trying to put on me, and is it really real? How valid is all of this today, the Bible? I was not really digging in. So it was truly showing up on Sunday and then kind of going about my week. But I think I still felt a lot of guilt and shame if I did something I knew wasn't biblical, and so that was there. So my conscience knew, or the morality, or just everything at that time when I was walking away. But it didn't influence me enough compared to the pull of the world. And I really wanted to achieve. So when I was in high school, I was pretty driven. My grades were okay, but I was involved I was a cheerleader first until I quit after my junior year. I was done. I'd done it since I was little. But then I got involved in like speech and debate and extemporaneous speaking and the theater. The theater was what honestly I'd say saved me as a teenager because that group of kids was like, they were the group that just liked to have a lot of fun, but they weren't like the rebellious kids.
Good, clean
They're
fun.
just good, clean fun. Exactly. And so, but we would be there, every night, like 4 or 5 nights a week for multiple hours. And I had been really excited because I can't sing at all, but there was a position for a junior director, which then meant you were also the senior director. It was like a 2-year assignment.
Wow.
And so, and for the first time ever, the theater director decided to have 2 females do that. He always did a male and a female, and since there was already a female, he should have found a male, but there just wasn't, so he let me go into that spot, and so it was just a sweet time. So I felt like now I can look back and say that was a little bit of a God thing that he put me in with that group, and it helped kind of maybe the path I was on shift to a better space. So I was thankful for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then as you were going through all that high school stuff and you're dreaming about your future, Ohio State, that's kind of a big deal. Feels like a big deal to me. What did you think you were going to be when you grew up, and what did you want to do?
Oh, that's funny. So, and back then, I didn't have a ton of direction, and Ohio State was big, and I knew I'd went up to Heidelberg, that was real small, and I'm like, okay, this is the size of my high school. So what else is there? Miami at the time required an essay, and I didn't want to write an essay. I just didn't know. You just didn't know. You know.
I talk about this with my best childhood friend all the time. We were children. We were kids, making these big college decisions.
Right.
Felt like there could have been a little more guidance on these. I made very, very silly reasons for the college I ended up picking. I don't even want to tell you what they were. They're silly. I'll tell you after we're off the recording. But just choices that really made no difference in the real future of my career or my, education. But same thing. This one was too small. This one was too big. This one, maybe I like the school colors and they look good on me or whatever.
Exactly.
Just not good decision making. So I can relate there too.
Yeah. I wanted to get away. I did get early acceptance to Ohio State. I was able to take some college classes my senior year. It was the very first year they had what's now College Credit Plus, but back then it was called post-secondary something. Yeah. And so that was fun my senior year. I was there half the day, and then I got to go up to Kent Stark and take a few classes, and I knew I was ready for college. And
were you already starting communications kind of stuff with that? Is that what your focus was?
Well, this is funny. I took English and French. That was my 6th year of French, and I thought I was going to go to Ohio State, and I was going to be in international relations.
Okay.
So that's what I thought. And go off and do something diplomatic or whatever. But I got to Ohio State, and honestly, I thought the counselor gave me horrible advice. It was actually wise advice. They were recommending I take Arabic as a language. I was in the honors college, but at that time, I'm I don't think I want to learn Arabic, and the honors college just seemed really hard. I just didn't, maybe. And then I don't have as strong of a math mind as I do, the more creative writing side. So my freshman year, first quarter, had an econ class on the other side of campus, and that didn't go so well, so I really needed to ask the professor to let me take it again for freshman forgiveness. And I recognized that maybe the economic side of international relations isn't where I wanted to be, and narrowed it down to public relations after a bit of a journey. So, yeah.
So being at Ohio State, and I heard you say you transferred.
I did.
Was it just hard being at the big school, or what was the choice there?
2 things, actually, and that was a God thing. So I was there 3 years, and my junior year, because it did take me a little bit to figure out what I wanted to do. I was respiratory therapist.
Wow.
FBI agent. You know what I mean?
Let's go.
It's all over. So
there's still time, girl. You can still fulfill that dream.
But yeah, as I finally kind of locked in, and this is where God was moving. So that year, I'd broken up with a boyfriend, realized I needed to get more serious about school, had met an old high school friend who was in public relations, and I looked into it. I'm like, that aligns more with my skill set. So I was digging in there, but my roommate group was they just didn't have to work, and they studied in front of the TV, and we were starting to shift, and one girl just really kind of didn't like me, which hadn't been the case, but then kind of was the case, and so now there's some roommate drama, and I hadn't ever had a ton of trouble having friends that were girls, so this was newer to me, but super hard. And
living quarters, college living quarters, probably pretty tight.
It was, and it just kind of felt like it wasn't a good living situation anymore. And God had been doing a few things. So this was after Christmas, but I had went home over Christmas and went to the Christmas Eve service in my little church, and I love that with the candles and everything. But this time I was sitting there, and just tears just started streaming down my face. And I'm like, what is going on? I just felt, I don't know, just sad, but I was where I was supposed to be, but just these kind of emotions. And and I didn't recognize that was the Holy Spirit kind of nudging me at the time. You know, it's just like, that was weird. And things had been stirring. Then this happened. And so there just happened to be a relative down there in Columbus who had just went through a divorce. And she had two little kids. And she had a room open. She's like, you could rent a room from me. And so that would give me a solution to get out of the home and, you know, just finish up the rent. And then another really cool God thing happened that, again, I wasn't looking for it, but the only time my dad, who was an electrician, ever traveled, ever for his job, was right then to come work nights at a TGI Fridays, which is actually where I was waitressing and working at the time, to do electrical work in the evening. Then he moved me during the day. Like,
wow.
never, ever traveled, like, outside of maybe an hour and a half radius.
Right to your front
door.
door.
But then that time had to go to Columbus to do this job for a few days. So anyhow, but I moved in with her, and that woke me up a lot because my parents really got along well. Like, they are still to this day a great team. Like, I saw them work on the finances together, house projects together. You know, my dad would chip in, you know, he's an electrician at day, but he would do household chores. So I saw a lot of teamwork. But then after living with my cousin and just seeing, like, the devastation from a divorce and, you know, having the late night conversations with her and seeing the pain with the kids and hearing her hurt and her sadness and some bitterness and just watching all that, it really sobered me a lot. I was like, oh, wow, I got to think about who I'm dating. Like, I really, really think about who it doesn't always work out right, you know? So I'd say I was feeling pretty, like, coming home that summer after that experience and the roommate thing, I was just feeling pretty humbled, like the Lord was stripping away a lot from me.
And you said you were an achiever
Yes.
right, earlier, so that is something that was important to you.
Right.
So that humbling.
Yeah. And I was coming home thinking that would be like maybe a fresh start, like come home, work for the summer, and then head back down. I was going to live with, you know, some other people. I made arrangements. But then I met I didn't know he was going to be my husband at the time, but I came to the Fridays at Belden because that's where I was living, and he was working there. And, you know, it took a month or so just to talk and different things and hanging out. But one night it just ended up being the two of us, and that started a conversation and, you know, started us hanging out more. And so when I went to his house, it was interesting to me because he was the oldest of four. At the time, he had his mom's twin sister and her family living with them because she was on mercy ships. They did some missionary stuff.
Wow.
Not his family, but the sister. And so there's all these cousins and stuff around. And then they loved Jesus. So, like, they had a Bible, like, just laying out, and she'd have journals out, and she'd talk about having these, like, life group type things. I forget what the name was then, but it was the idea of, like, a Bible study or life group. And it was fascinating to me because, I don't know, my family was a little more prim and proper and, you know, rigid, maybe not rigid exactly, but just a little more structured. And she was the oldest of 10 kids. It was a lot more energy and kind of chaotic, honestly.
Yeah.
But there was a joy or something there that I couldn't quite put my finger on. And, you know, she was really welcoming to me, very friendly and super just kind, asked me all kinds of questions and just, like, kind of brought me in. And then she was the first person that ever, as I'm sharing all my college woes, you know, she's like, well, can I pray for you about that?
Wow.
And so then she puts her hand, like, you know, on my arm and just starts praying and talking to Jesus, like he's her friend, and about me and sharing things and asking him, you know, for just what I needed and teaching me, you know, how to pray. And that was really interesting to me. I was like, that's not something I've ever seen before.
Were you, like, early 20s at this point?
I had just turned 21. Yep. Yeah. Yes.
Wow. Okay.
So that's where I was. And at the same time, I bumped into another high school friend who was in public relations at Kent. And Kent's program was more of a business focus, and Ohio State's was more of a journalism focus. And I just met this boy. My roommate when I went to Ohio State, it was a high school friend, but she had to leave a week into school because of a family emergency. So she was actually heading up to Kent. So it's like everything just kind of aligned, and so I made the switch and transferred. And yeah, my husband was actually leaving at the end of August. He wasn't my husband yet, to go to Belgium for a semester of school. So we knew each other about 6 weeks.
Wow.
And then he went.
Did you go visit him?
I was going to.
Yeah.
Had it like almost all set, but he could come home longer. So he ended up deciding to come home and then go back, where I could have only went for about a week. So he did come back halfway through and went back over there. And then we actually, when my kids hear this story, it's hard for them to believe, but then he came back in December and he proposed. He had a ring made while he was over there because he was in Antwerp, Belgium, and yeah. So.
Oh, wait, hold on.
Yeah, I know.
Like doing the time that you met him over the summer. Started talking after your shift and started hanging out more.
Yes.
And then what, August maybe became
End
serious?
Of August, yes.
And then he was gone.
Yes.
And then in December, you're like, we can't live without each other.
Yes. So that seems really crazy. But a few things happened that were interesting. One, like the first time he went away, and then we had like a few weeks of calls, and we had a really large phone bill. So we're like, oh, we can't afford this.
Did you like 10, 220 back in that time?
We had like
phone cards.
Yeah, we had. Well, I mean, when he was in Europe, we couldn't use those. So we had, what was it? The Akron Canton Connection was like what we used just locally, but we started using email. I mean, back then, email on campus, like the email address was, so long.
Yeah.
And you'd send your email in the computer lab, and it might take a day or two.
He probably had to pay for a computer
to get to
Europe at like a cyber cafe.
Yeah. Well, the campus he was at, he could get into the computer lab too, but it had a delay and everything.
Yes.
And so we started, emailing back and forth these like long letters because we just couldn't afford to talk all that often. Which now, like, he put them in some binders, and recently I just looked at them. It's so funny. Wow. Yeah. But it did, I don't know. I know. We were engaged a year and a half before we got married, so we did.
Short dating,
longer engagement. I'm not saying I'd recommend it. Just saying, I didn't know what I didn't know back then. And so God, worked that out. But
what is your husband's name?
His name's Jesse.
Jesse
Dolan.
Yep. I don't know that I've ever met him either.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
And he was from the Canton area originally?
Green. He grew up in
okay.
he grew up in Green. So.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So then you finished out your senior year at Kent. Mm-hmm. You're engaged, but you haven't yet gotten married. You're trying to figure out career and next steps.
Mm-hmm. All that. And he was like, his faith journey was different where, he was raised, his family kind of switched from one denomination to more non-denominational when he was in 4th grade. So he saw it all, but his thinking then was, I'm going to go have all my fun, and then I'll come back to Jesus later.
Really?
He was kind of
premeditated that.
Pretty much. And he always say that. Like, that's kind of like, yeah, that's all there, Mom and Dad, but I'm going to go have fun now. And
like an Amish kid, don't they do that? Like
Rumspringa?
Yeah, they just... Hey.
What's
the method?
So, yeah, we were, we were, there's a lot we didn't know, but I was super curious, and I was, like, walking towards, like, we committed, we were living in Akron while he finished up school. So it did take me 5 years, but I finished and had internships and had a job, and then he had another year of school left. So we were, living in Akron, going to the chapel. And
okay, so you started going to the denominational community-based church together and started to, were you going as ninjas, or did you like plug in and start serving and all that?
Well, we didn't start serving, not there, but we did like join the volleyball league. He loved volleyball.
Whoa,
I'm not that good at it, but I did it for him. So we did, we wanted to plug in with some couples. So we're taking baby steps. But again, it was all really, really new to me. We just kind of knew we didn't want to maybe go to the exact same church as his parents, just because we were figuring it out ourselves,
So as you started to hear sermons at like a Bible preaching, modern day connection, like storytelling, here's how to apply this to your life today, church. What was that like for your mind and your heart?
It was so different. It was definitely, And that's when, like back then, is when Newt Larson was there and still preaching, and it was impactful. I mean, it was just not anything I'd heard before. So I was really curious and wanted to know more, and so was starting to read my Bible, and but a little bit here or there. It wasn't until a little bit later, like I was so in the world and just didn't know what I didn't know, but we ended up moving from Akron up to Streetsboro. We were both working at Swagelock, and that's when we met the Shetler family, who they attend Grace. And as we got to know them, Elizabeth was actually the one who introduced me to Christian radio. Like, she's like, do you listen to Focus on the Family or this program? I'm like, what's that? Like, I just didn't know.
Yeah.
And
There's
she's
this whole
like,
subculture that you're just not in.
I'm like, I didn't ever turn to that channel. So I didn't know. So I started learning, there's Christian fiction. I didn't know. I mean, it's an avid book reader, but I didn't realize there was this whole genre of, and she told me about this book. I'm like, oh. So I just, it was more and more and more as God kind of led the way. And then finally I decided, we were, at that time we were at Parkside because we were up a little further north, and just recognized that I wanted to surrender my life fully to Jesus, not just salvation, which I felt like I had done earlier, but I wanted to get baptized as an adult and, wanted him to be actually Lord of my life. And as much as my, at the time I was probably 25, brain had been processing that and figuring it out. So that was definitely a milestone moment for me. And because in the Lutheran faith, like some, I was baptized as an infant, so it was like, well, you're already baptized, but it meant something to me because I was choosing it, and it was maybe kind of saying goodbye, to the past and opening the door to something new.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Did you feel like your life changed then? Were you more conflicted or challenged? They always say it's not a promise for perfection after you make that choice, but what does your life lead you into next?
We actually moved shortly after. And so, when Jesse and I are sharing this story together, at the time that I got baptized, we were both working at the same job. We were both actually pursuing our MBA, so we were going to school at night, but on different days. But he just wasn't quite there yet to do the baptism thing, so I did those classes that he didn't. And then through that, we made the decision, and I went kicking and screaming, but we recognized for his career it was going to be helpful for him to leave the company we were at and take a new job. So when we decided that, I had to say goodbye to my job, and we moved to northern Kentucky because he was going to be working for Toyota.
Wow.
And and I love my job. I absolutely had loved the job that I had. But God, and I really wrestled with God in that one, because that's where I was finally hearing some messages about, I was a year older, I had the first job, I kind of thought I should be in charge, and God was starting to nudge me that this needed to be more mutual. I wasn't the leader, we needed to figure some things out there. And I know that's a touchy subject, but we all have to kind of sort that through. So,
and you're an older sibling.
And I'm an older sibling.
You're just kind of used to that.
And he's an older sibling, so we were really and that was part of what wrestling with the Lord, was we were not communicating nicely to each other, and that part of that surrender was realizing I needed some shaping of my own character, and how do we navigate this marriage together now, with these strong personalities and
such great gifts,
everything that comes with that.
Also, such a great challenge.
Yes.
Okay. So you decided to submit, and you left, and you moved to northern Kentucky and rebooted your life.
What?
You rebooted your life?
Totally, yes.
Didn't know anybody there, or
No.
did you have any family or community?
Nope.
How does that
Nobody.
work for you? I've never done that before.
That's where God was so incredibly generous, and he did not need to be, he doesn't, but I felt like that was the tiniest step of obedience to follow, and we found a church. We landed at a vineyard, which is a place his parents had been, and I ended up with a great job, a job that I loved just as much as, so that was really fun and neat. So I found the job, and, we had decided intentionally, because not everybody has this chance when you are kind of leaving one world and going to another, like we were able to start over. Do you know what I mean? And so we are like, we need to find friends in the church, not just like at work or, other places, but we need to find some community because, my whole life was really in the world prior to that. So I realize it's hard when you find Jesus, but all your friends maybe don't, and you're still in that world. That's its own challenge. And I feel like it was a mercy that we moved because it allowed us to have a fresh start, kind of a little more unified in our faith and trying to build something new together. So we looked for a house and found the church, and this was pretty awesome. We went into the church for the first time, and that church, like at the end, you could go up for prayer if you wanted to. We're like, well, we're new, we'd seen some of this, so we went up for prayer, and the pastor prayed for us, and the things that he prayed, like we could not have prayed better prayers for each other, knowing each other and being married. Like he just prayed for Jesse in a way that he needed and me. And we went out to the car and we're both crying. And that's not normal.
I have goosebumps over that.
But
that's
we just,
crazy.
It was. It was like we had not experienced that ever. So that was pretty intriguing. We're like, well, we're coming back.
Yes.
And we want to know more. And, let's figure this out. And so we started going to there were only like 2 life groups back then. And the pastor was hosting one. We're like, let's go to that one. And so we started attending, and, it's funny because we both had our jobs. We had no kids or anything, but we thought we were so busy. Like, oh my gosh, can we spare one night a week to get?
I
do you remember
absolutely know that feeling, and I bet a lot of people listening feel the same way right now. Do you feel that way?
Right.
Still make the commitment. I'm sure Christine's about to share something amazing that occurred when you committed, right?
We did, yeah. So we're battling that, but we're like, yeah, we're going to go. And it was a season. It was a few months of just like receiving and hearing and honestly like letting go of a lot of the past and, hearing what was new and what God wanted us to know. And but in that like 3rd or 4th month, it was big. There was like 40 people and they wanted to grow. And I'm like, well, I'm not going. I just got here. But God was like tapping on my heart. And, it was like after a few weeks, we had picked a house that we knew, it wasn't huge, but we knew it had a space. And we had some experience, just opportunities with hospitality before we moved. And we really felt like he was saying, hey,
you can lead?
You can not lead, but just host.
Host, okay.
So we said, okay, we'll host. And then the pastor found, he's somebody in like his mid-30s that came to teach. And the way they did their life groups was, so like he was teaching, we opened our home and they would always have worship, like somebody with a guitar that would do a few songs before the teaching, and then we'd pray after. That was just their format. So,
cool.
So they found somebody to do that, and he was around our age. It was a couple and a few other couples that were in that group that was so big that were younger, and we all journeyed to our house and said yes. And and that was the start of like a really, really sweet time of community. So just being in that church and that space is where I started to learn like more about generosity and started to learn like about social justice and serving the poor. Like our church didn't do those things. We didn't do grocery giveaways or, going to pray for, grocery giveaways to the homeless or go pray or, a lot of the student ministry things that this church was doing. So that was all new. And, we started just by doing the coffee bar. I'm like, where do we start? Let's do that. Where we could just be a friendly face until we know more. But then that group of people that we started journeying with just quickly went deeper and deeper. And I would say that was our like church within the church. So, but what happened is it grew quickly. So they multiplied, like one set of group went, started hosting a different night. And then it happened again, like in this time period of a few years. But what was awesome was twice a month, out of all those like 4 groups, the women would get together. We called it Brekkie Chicks and go to First Watch. And it was just neat because, sometimes you see groups and once you divide, it's like, oh, well, now you're in this group. And it was just really sweet to have a group of women that stayed together and stayed connected, even though we were on different paths. And that's rare to find. So I really appreciated that.
Yeah, staying together. I'm sure that it wasn't perfect.
No.
I mean, there was probably some hurt feelings along the way, and people that just needed to have healing and forgiveness between relationships. But the value of working through those things and staying together and growing together is so deepening.
Yes, it was. And so then, I was working, but then I lost my job when I was 5 months pregnant.
Whoa.
And I found out the night we had community group, they were coming to our house. I just found out that I had lost my job. And they're like, well, you were wondering whether you're going to work or not anyway. And so we ended up starting this inflatable bounce house company called Big Top Amusements and Party Rental. And at the same time, launched a little eBay business that was tied to one of our friends in the community group. So took a little turn, life turn, and God just kind of had a mercy there because he shut the door. It was going to be really hard to go. At the time, I was working in project management for an HR consulting company. So I wasn't really going to go start interviewing for another job at 5.5 months pregnant.
Yeah. There's laws against that, but we all know that when the interview is thinking.
Yes, exactly. That was going to be a challenge to navigate. So that took our life a little bit of a different path. And in that, we also, of all this group of couples, we were trying to figure out how to manage the logistics of still staying connected, even though we were geographically kind of far apart. And so we had the idea to everybody buy homes in this one community, Fort Thomas, which was close to Cincinnati, and plant a vineyard there. That was our idea. So several families did that, but at the time when we were going to make the call, just from having a new baby and launching those two businesses, our marriage was a little frayed. I'm like, we can't add a move until we
one more piece,
until we settle down a little bit and make sure we're okay. And so a lot of our friends moved over there to do this church plant, and about 9 months later we moved over there too to plant start this church thing. And we did that for about 2 years, and there was a lot of good in it. And then there was some hard because everybody was volunteer. We thought it was going to be a lot of young couples, and we attracted a lot of young lifers or singles, or it's just funny how what you think the plan will be and what God does. And afterward, we could reflect on it, and what we saw is we learned a lot more about prayer. We learned a lot more about community, but I think community almost became an idol, and it became above discipleship.
Okay.
And so over time, we decided to move back home. We had our second child. Family was starting to have kids, and we wanted to come back to Northeast Ohio. And then that kind of dissolved a little bit after that. But that was, we left with that still kind of, how was that going to shake out, and what lessons did we need to learn? And that's what we teased out ultimately, that, it's really, really important to ensure that when you're making these decisions, that it is, really focused on making disciples and being about Jesus, not just about us all loving each other, but it had to go outward, and we got stuck there.
You reminded me of this phrase that Joe's been saying recently, when a good thing becomes a God thing, then it's a bad thing, which I had a hard time understanding at first, because I thought it was saying, when a good thing, God gets involved with a good thing, it's even better, but what he meant was the idol thing. So when a good thing, your community, you planted this church, becomes a God thing, replacing God, then it just spoils. Yeah. And not that everything's rotten from it, but you do have to replace things on the shelf.
Exactly. Right?
Yeah. So your move up here kind of forced that situation, and probably in a way replanted you again, even though it was to a known community, but still you had been gone for how long? Yeah, we had been gone 6 years. Yeah. So that's a restart again. Yeah. Yeah, and I didn't really want to, we made the decision together, but I would have stayed longer. I was, but we had always said we were coming back, and so just kind of another obedient step that you had to take to come back. Exactly. Yeah. But definitely made, some lifelong friends there. So,
fast forward a few years, and we're plugged in. Now we're at, it was Hudson Community Chapel at the time, because we were living in Hudson, and in a life group. We kind of were in a life group and community group, and our friend from Kentucky reached out, and he had written a curriculum called The Story Formed Life, and it was a discipleship program. And so we were curious, and it was a 10-week program of kind of just, there's other studies out there now, but kind of just taking the Bible from beginning to end, right, and showing how the thread of Jesus weaves through. I think Seamless is a women's study that's similar.
Interesting.
But so they came up with their family, and our whole life group in the summer met for 5 weeks. They stayed in their RV in our basement, and we just did 2 days a week, did this discipleship program. And in that, one of the key things for me, just on my faith journey, was when we spent the time with the Holy Spirit and God, because of my faith, my denominational background, I still really saw God as a pretty mean judge. And I'm like, okay, Jesus, even though I'd worked through so much, I still recognize that I didn't know exactly how I felt about God. And this was a space where he really opened my eyes to see, Jesus, every single time Jesus talked about his Father, it was with love and obedience and commitment. And I'm like, okay, if every time Jesus looks at the Father, he sees love, and every time he looks at the Father, he, chooses to obey, that's a God of love. That's not a God of judgment. So it started to shift that perspective for me, and that was powerful, to start to believe a little bit deeper that God loved me. He wasn't just waiting for me to mess up again. But in that study, one thing that it's more an Eastern way of learning, it's called Midrash, but you take a chunk of scripture, and then the idea is that you really got to tear it apart and chew on it, and, till you flesh out what is the truth. And so that, and then we would kind of say, okay, do you believe that at a 1, or a 10? And here's your belief at a 1, a 3, a 5, and I would recognize in that area, I knew then I'm starting to recognize this is who God is, but I don't know that my belief was at a 10. It was probably at a 3 or 4, and this ties into the rest of my story, just that I still probably thought I needed to hustle for my worth with God, if that makes sense. I was growing there, but it was still, I think there's still a little bit of a lie.
Yeah. Yeah, tell me more about that.
Yeah, so let's see. So that would be jumping a little bit ahead in my story, but had 2 more kids. We ended up moving to Fairlawn, landed at Grace. And
how did that happen? To come to Grace specifically?
Oh, that was fun, because we actually thought we were going to end up at the Highland Square CCC back then, because we were connected, but we were looking for something for our kids also. We wanted to make sure that was a good fit. And Jesse took a walk with his mom one morning, and she mentioned Grace because they'd been at a church and some people had shifted over to Grace. And she's like, have you heard of it? And then he had driven down Cleveland-Massillon Road and saw the Grace Church offices when he was at Lowe's. And so Grace. And then he turned on the Fish, because it was Fish, and heard them advertising a VIP evening that they were hosting, and he's like, I just heard Grace Church mentioned 3 times in one day. What is this? So we got online and, looked at it and reached out to a few people, and we're like, can you tell us more about the church? And then we came, and the first time we came, which is I am on the First Impressions team, and that stems from all the way back being at the Vineyard and doing coffee for the first time, and how people, what I learned there. But when we walked into Grace, Joe Crusoe Pastor Joe was at the front desk of the lobby, which is so different than it is today.
Sure. Well, what year was this?
That was 2014.
Okay.
So
11 years. Okay.
Yeah, so it was a lot different and just so friendly. Everybody was so friendly. But I distinctly remember him answering all of our questions and just it had a vibe very similar to like the church we had been at in Northern Kentucky too. So
Felt a little like home.
it did. It did. Yeah. So that's how we ended up. We're
Okay.
like, yeah, we're going to keep going here. And
Now, you name dropped Elizabeth Shetler some time
did.
ago. Did she circle back in here some point?
she did. Yes. Yeah. Because we had journeyed. We were at the same church for a season. So we were both at Mosaic Church for a season. Previously. Yep.
And just for our friends listening,
Sure.
Elizabeth Shetler goes to Grace. So she's a mutual friend, also involved in the women's retreats. Maybe if you're listening, you know her, but so that's the connection there.
Yes. Yeah.
And you said you worked with her at Swagelock.
She didn't work at Swagelock, but her husband did.
Got it.
Yes.
That's how you
Yeah.
met them. Okay.
Exactly. Yes. And so we remained friends, and then they started attending Grace. So, yeah, that was so. She's had an influence on my faith for a long time.
So you came to Grace in 2014, and how did things progress from there?
Let's see. So we jumped in. Like that was a sweet season. Like we were excited. We had just moved. I was in the middle of homeschooling at the time.
How many kids do you have?
I have 4. So we have 4 kiddos.
Okay.
Doing that. We plugged in with a marriage group. We started at a life group. The Huth Life Group was our first life group.
cool.
So we were with them, and then plugged into the marriage ministry, and then just kind of kept jumping in. I jumped into the middle school ministry where my daughter was. Jesse was doing some stuff with the men. And that was it was nice. It was sweet. I was starting to feel a little overwhelmed just with everything, like the serving and the homeschooling and just navigating a few things, and recognized that we probably needed to do a reset. Like every year we'd kind of take time to do a reset, and one was coming up. But my daughter was, she was in 6th grade, and that's when everything, I would say, started to shift. And that's because a really, really sad thing happened. She had the sweetest best friend. Like they'd been friends for about like a year and a half, and just super, 6th grade girls, just so sweet and cute. And in December, like something kind of hard happened. And then in January, her best friend and her entire family died in a tragedy. And it was due to some mental health issues. But in one night, the entire family was gone. And it took a while to sort that out. Allison was 12, Julia's 11, like my daughter, and Allison had a younger sister and the parents. And so when that happened, that was like we just hadn't experienced an unexpected death.
Tragic.
And hadn't experienced like a lot of death, honestly, at all. We've been very blessed. So when that hit, I realized like we didn't know what to do. So we're in shock for a while, and a lot. Pastor Jeff gave, my husband wisdom, and just the community needed some time to work through that. But also in that season, talk around mental health wasn't as prevalent right back then, and definitely not as prevalent in the church. Like there was still a little bit more of a
stigma to it.
To it. And I thought I was doing, like, you think you're doing the right things, or, you think you're trying to protect your kids, and you're like, oh my gosh, and so all these other families are trying to react to this, like
following their own
upbringings
and beliefs and everything.
Yeah, and it was really, really hard. And I went, and I didn't know. I went to a counselor to see, should I bring my daughter to a counselor, and I was just kind of I always thought, okay, I should handle it myself. So I went to ask, and the counselor asked me, well, do you think you should bring your daughter to a counselor? And for me, I heard that as almost do you really think she needs, do you know what I mean? And I think today, if an 11-year-old loses their best friend, overnight through a mental health track, they'll be like, yeah,
Absolutely.
absolutely.
Yes.
You're going to need some
Yes.
help. And I heard that a little bit as more like, I should just handle it myself. Does that make sense? So it doesn't mean they were saying that, but I was
You were
like,
predisposed to feel that way
I
anyways
was.
with some of your achieving, like, I can handle this.
exactly.
maybe.
Yes. Yeah. And I probably needed a more direct, like, yeah, you probably need to talk to somebody, and, maybe she does too. And so, like, that one was tough. And I think she ended up over the next year and a half. I mean, she definitely in 7th grade would say just was walking through in a pretty depressed state.
Yeah.
But she was plugged in at that point here at Grace in a group, and that was like at least one space that was good for her. But a lot of her friends left and went to CVCA 7th grade year. So as she wrapped up 6th grade, she still had support, even though that was hard. But I think 7th grade was tough. And for me, I didn't know what to do. And this was the start of, like, after a little bit, I said I'd already been weary, knew we needed to reset. But then this happened. And I remember looking in the mirror, and the agreement I made with the enemy and the lie I told myself was, I can be okay once they're all okay. And that was a dangerous thing to do. That was an unhelpful thing to do. But I felt like, there's these other things, like maybe I'm feeling overwhelmed with schooling, or like just what I just can't. And I'm going to focus on them. But, after now therapy that I'll talk about later,
Sure.
you got to put your own oxygen mask on. But
Yeah.
I didn't do that. And then I'd go teach, and then I'd come maybe into the bedroom and I'd cry for a little while, and then go back up and teach, and was just not in a great
And
space. Hiding it. Oh, and hiding it. Because, right, you just got to kind
strong.
of soldier on, and, God will get you through. And
some of those
could
come
be
from a good place of,
yeah.
like you're saying, God can sustain me, and
Right.
but there's also, like, just a humility of being broken and surrendering to that and letting people in on that too.
Right. Yes. And that was, it kind of felt like maybe you needed to be strong, or, and I didn't know how to grieve. Like, didn't really understand how, that it was okay to, almost like, well, Julia should grieve more. It was her friend, but it was, we were all, we were all friends. Like, we loved them. And so I also don't feel like we knew how to support her as she was grieving as well as we could have. So that was just, that was a tough season. And so in that, and kind of that lie that, like, they'll be, like, once they're okay, like, I'm focusing all my energy on them and thinking that I can control stuff that I can't control. And it's not ever fair to put, like, to say that your happiness is linked to somebody else's. Do you know what I mean? Like, like, God has to be the anchor.
Yeah.
And he's the one that is holding things together. And I started to think that I needed to hold things together.
Yeah.
That's dangerous, and I didn't realize that. But in trying to grasp for control that way, or thinking, well, I could, well, maybe if I do these things for God, like nothing bad will happen again. Like, God, and it almost went back to my striving, like, pre-accepting Jesus, because when I did have my mind, like, testimony when I was baptized, it was around understanding that there was truth in Jesus and his sacrifice and salvation, and his word gave us, like, a yardstick that would never move. The world is fickle. The world's yardstick always moves on you.
Right.
That's, as we talk about the enemy's playbook. He tells you one thing, and as soon as you achieve it, it's moved, and you have
Staircase
something
movement,
new to
yeah.
achieve, right? So I almost started doing that with God. Like, God, like, if I hustle, like, if I do all these things for you, will that be enough to, like, I guess, have a safe life? Do you know? It doesn't make sense now, but
Right.
back
But
then,
at the time, you're locked in because Satan has a foothold with you, and you see it through that filter.
Yep.
It's so unfortunate. But,
Yeah.
it sounds like, how did you come through that?
So we we were we we were trying. Like I would say it was a slow fade, if that makes sense. So, as we went into that, Jesse and I actually we started leading a life group, and we thought that was a good idea because in the past, being in community was our lifeline and was our
unites
yes,
you as well.
Exactly. And it was really, really good in so many ways. We were in another life group, and I also needed some women friendships. Like I needed to just be, and I was starting to create those there. But then we're like, do we stay here and I do that, or do we like shift and start this group? And we made the shift, and it was a different space, and there was a lot of fruit in it. But we thought we were starting it with another couple, and then they just ran into some life challenges, and we're like, we can't. So then it was going to be us, and they'd be in the group. But then some more life challenges hit, and this group came out of a marriage group that we had led. So, and then some other people joined, so it was a mix. But it ended up, for the first time in our lives as leaders, we had not just our peers, but some that were maybe a decade younger than us. And it was a different space. I was already hurting, and you know what I mean? There's all this stuff happening under the surface. We had a few marriages that were really struggling, like at least 3. And then you have babies getting at it. It was just a lot. And in my mind space, I was thinking that, I was supposed to help solve all their problems. What a dangerous thing to think, and the logic of, well, Lord, you brought them to this group, so there must be.
I must be
we
be able to save them.
Yeah. Yes.
Right?
Right.
In a
right.
way.
What a horrible, prideful thing, but it was that striving. It was that, just different things that were anchored in my past and wanting to fix or be aware or just make it all okay. And some things you just can't make okay. And God just calls us to be with people. Yeah. But that, I hadn't learned how to do that well yet without thinking I was, that I needed.
If this, then that, transactional kind of thing, maybe.
Yeah, yeah, and maybe almost if they were okay, then I'd be okay, that's that. So we realized we were getting more and more burnout, and we were going to, wrap that up after 3 years. And it was awesome. We had some baptisms at the end.
A great amount of time.
There was good fruit, and then there were hard things too. But we were really depleted. But that was the summer of 2019. So we're like, okay, we're gonna take a break, and reset.
Enjoy
and
life
then,
in 2020.
Yeah, and then step back in 2020 and then COVID hit, right? So what I can look back now and see is just the enemy was just isolating our family. He was just kind of picking us off one by one and in different ways and saying, okay, believe this, believe that. And as we went into COVID, now we don't have a community at all because we took a break, and we have peripheral community, but not the core that we...
Regular meetings and all that.
And we had that for decades, so that was odd. And then COVID itself, we all had our challenges there, and our family, 2 ends of the spectrum, mine was really cautious, and, my husband's family is more don't tell me what to do,
I hear that.
So you got and I'm kind of in the middle, so you're navigating just
being put between all of those parties as well, and now you're trying to plan Easter and birthdays and Christmas and everything. Yeah, that was hard.
And you got teenagers, the kids, all of that. So just I think the spiral for me down continued, and then something. I remember praying one day because it wasn't our family. And, I knew, I just knew the enemy had a foothold. And I was like, Lord, we are just lukewarm. This isn't us. What is going on? Would you, break whatever this is? And a short time later, something came up, that we just found out was happening with a family member, and it really rocked us, and it rocked me, and I did not know how to respond. So that's when we reached out to Grace, and they put us in touch with Free to Be. And while I went, because of what I thought was an issue with someone else, like what happened was, God got a hold of me in that. And, at Free to Be, like there's a counseling aspect, but there's an integrative prayer piece. And I really needed to be realigned with God, because I was in some agreements that weren't healthy, and I was just striving, and I totally believed that God was very disappointed in me and mad and just upset, and had so many things. And what I've learned since is, if we aren't seeing God accurately, right, then we can't see ourselves accurately, which then makes it harder to see others through a lens of love. And if I'm thinking that God is looking at me and he's still mad or upset or disappointed or thinks I failed in this, and it's just heaping that on me, that's going to come out. And so some of my time at Free to Be was spent just in prayer, and God was so faithful to show up and take my broken heart and my confused heart, and just through prayer really rewrite that story and help me to see how he actually saw me, and how he actually saw my family, and actually how he wanted me to see him, through a lens of love and grace and goodness, and that his desires for me and our family were always good, and that he was faithful. And, all those, and that took time. Yeah. That was a journey, and
a whole lot of hard work and commitment, too, to stick to that journey, to keep going to the appointments and not shy away, because there's still somebody that's trying to keep you from that. And
absolutely.
It's easy to say, not right now, I don't have time for this, but it sounds like you stuck with it and did the hard work.
Yeah. Yeah. It was on one hand, it was super hard, like you said, and anyone that's stepping into counseling or therapy, it takes an amount of courage. Now I really respect, and you have to allow mental time to process that and do the work. It's not easy, but it was so worth it. So
and one of my least favorite words. I'd say this jokingly now, but when I first was starting to explore these kinds of things, like you're talking about vulnerability, ugh, I'm joking, but I'm also kind of not. But to be vulnerable and to let those things out, even in that small room, like you said, the stigmas that we can get tricked into believing around that kind of stuff, and to actually be honest with yourself, be honest out loud, and let somebody speak into that, and then to not be stubborn, and to actually let the wisdom break through and chisel away. What I'm hearing from you is you had to chisel these agreements away and all of the darkness that had kind of encompassed you in a way. And just thinking about, you were a believer for 20, 30 years at this point, but you're still learning. There's still more depth to go to, and there's so much goodness throughout that time, yet you still could be in that space. And I hope that's an encouragement for anybody listening that could think, why am I so broken? Why am I so this, what did Jeff call it just this weekend? The unique...
yes. What was that word?
Oh, come on.
Is there a T in it?
Tragic uniqueness, or I have my notebook. Keep talking.
I know,
I'll
it's in
look
my
it up.
notes too. Yes, but that's it. Yes, that we're that's only us, no one else. But
terminal uniqueness.
Thank you. Yes.
Right.
And it's
so
good.
I'm the only one. But everybody, if you're listening to this and you're thinking why am I so broken? Well, you're not the only one. Don't let Satan think that.
Exactly. And that's why I wanted to share my story from back, because we were on a really positive trajectory. And sometimes it's just that 1 degree of walking away from the Lord, or 1 degree of, something getting in there, and all of a sudden, taking control.
I can do this.
And it seems fine at first, but then a year or so down the road, that's when you realize, wow, But in that, God is so faithful. I feel like every time he just answers with abundance, because he wants to give his children good things. He wants to, and I think we don't want to believe that he wants to give us as much goodness as he really does want to give us. And even when it's hard, you know? And so in that, I really, it helped me, and it's going to be a journey the rest of our life, but I really feel like what Jeff has been sharing and Joe around the enemy's playbook and around community and isolation, like it's humbled me, and it's, you know, reminded me that we need each other. Like, we need each other in the church, and we need that support, and we need people that will call us out when they see us like stepping off the path in love and grace. And that's a skill. And I'll share, but it's a gift when you have somebody that can do that. And I find that's hard to find. I think it is really, really hard to find. We have a friend that was from Northern Kentucky, and back when we lived there were two things that she said to me, and I'll explain how she's tied in with our family still today. But she said, one, she's like, you know, you guys seem to share, like, you'll be real vulnerable and authentic and transparent after you've worked through something. Ooh. So you'll work through it all. Yeah. And then you'll tell the story after the fact of like, okay, here's all the stuff that happened. She's like, but you don't invite us in to the mess.
Whoa.
And that, I mean, that's from like...
Oh, and a perfectionist and achiever and performer would say, but of course I would not. What are you talking about? I need the polished presentation. Why would I do it differently? But you're I'm guessing you were like, oh, snap.
Yeah.
There's a different option here? I didn't realize.
Yeah. So that's...
Speaking from experience, personally. I'm relating to you completely on all this. Yeah.
Yes, so she called me, but she was bold enough to call us out on it, right? And that stuck with me all these years. Yeah. And then like the next piece is then, and she came to our life group, you know, back then brought her boyfriend and fiance, and she was at Ohio State before then, like a rower, maybe 5 or 6 years younger than me. I'm trying to think, younger, but she was talking all about her identity in Christ. And I remember being like 30 and like, what are you talking about? Like, what do you mean identity in Christ? Like, I'm Christine, I do these things. Like, what do you mean identity in Christ? So I'm, you know, it's been now like 22 to 30, and 31 or 32, I still don't know. Like, what does it mean to have your identity in Christ? So that kind of comes back to this whole journey where I'm falling apart and striving, and God's rebuilding. And really, I thought I'd answered that, like understood that, but I didn't. Not to the depth that I feel like He showed me over these last few years of like, when you strip everything away, and like, where are you going to stand? And as we walk through some of this stuff, like I felt like everything was stripped away, and it's like, but I'm standing on you. I'm standing on the rock. And He would tell me, like, you are loved, you're chosen, you know, you're beloved, like, I am here for you, like, this is who you are, like, and just in that process, you know, there's not shame, there's not guilt, like, this is how I redeem, this is how I love, this is my grace, you know, all those new identities, and spoke more of that into me. And and it's a book that I've recommended to a few people. It's called Living Fearless. And it's just, it's honestly a series of prayers, but it really digs into identity and the question of how do you believe God sees you? And that transformed my prayer life. That transformed my ability to be more vulnerable and to, because it just doesn't matter. You know, it just doesn't matter. It could be because I'm older. Yes. But it's like, it's that.
But Solomon said it first, right? Everything is meaningless, right? There's just really nothing new under the sun. You're not this terminal uniqueness. No. We're not, nothing, everything's with me is, it's just, life is hard and can be dark, and also God is good. And there's so many truths there.
Yeah, it can be messy, and that's okay.
Yes. Because the more you show somebody else your mess, then the more their mess is not capable to be hooked onto by Satan.
Yes.
Like the thought of, well, you know, my marriage is struggling. Oh, well, wait, yours is too? You're Christine and Jesse aren't like model marriage? Like, but they lead the marriage class. They've done the life group. What do you mean? I'm not so broken. We're still broken.
Yes.
But we're not like held in that cave, you know, like trapped in there. Like, just shine light on it.
Yes.
It's not easy until you do it.
Right.
And then also until you see a friend benefit from it, or maybe you benefit from somebody else's honesty, and then it helps you to be honest as well and share those dark places.
So many times that's where somebody else being willing to just be a little bit vulnerable, it does. It encourages you to be brave or to trust that you can get through it or get to the other side because you see that they are working through it too, and they're still together. And like not believing that I hold all things together. God holds all things together.
I think there's a Bible verse about that.
Exactly. And I really like that one because he's way better at it than I am. So that was important. But that friend, so what's really fun is, those years ago, my daughter went to Cincinnati for school. And that same woman was also the first person to hold her when we had her, and my husband and I went out on a date, and now she's my daughter's mentor. She's mentoring my daughter. Isn't that fun? 20 years, we started in one space, and the way life can just circle around with the body of Christ. And
my favorite metaphor to spin on Unscripted is that tapestry where the threads are weaving in and out, and we have no idea that orange was over there, and now it's going to pop up over here from Cincinnati to Kentucky to all those things. And man, that's so cool. It is. And the more, and you mentioned getting older, which is such a joy in my life at least, and it sounds like yours as well, because you realize I survived that. It did not being a little naked in front of people didn't kill me like maybe I thought it was going to, or tarnish me or ruin anything. I made it through. I survived. God was faithful, and I can do it again. I'm in this new challenge today, but we're going to get through this one way or another, right? Through the fire, or, being taken by the fire, or making it through the fire, whichever one. It's going to be good.
It's going to be, he's going to walk us through it. He is not going to leave us.
Right.
So hard things might come, but we can, his word means something. His word and I think just with this series, so many times I can look at the past, and it doesn't mean it won't happen. It's just maybe I can get through it faster. It doesn't mean we don't get afraid.
Right.
It doesn't mean we don't fall down.
Yeah.
But it's our faith maybe comes back faster.
The cycle and can recoup a little
and we
more
remember
quickly. Just like in our marriages, you have a crazy cycle sometimes. How quickly do you recover? How quickly do you
Right.
get the communication back? That's the work. It's not going to stop you from having the crazy cycle, but it can help.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And that's been helpful. We've walked through just even a challenging season this fall, but the Lord has shown us that you can hold, joy and have a lot of gratitude for all that he's given you and have something hard going on, and
I've still got joy in chaos.
Yes.
I've got peace that makes no sense.
Exactly.
I won't be going under. I'm not held by my own strength.
Yeah, I
that
love
would make a
that.
good song, wouldn't it?
It would make such a good song. I love that song. Yeah.
Well, I want to hear from you because what I know of you, because of the intersections we've had, is through prayer at the women's retreat and spaces for prayer and spaces to be. So I'm hearing that in your words, how to be and how to be in the Word and be in prayer. Do you have any wisdom to share?
About wisdom, let's see. Prayer, having that time with the Lord is just critical to me. That's the one habit. I think as we walked through everything, it was figuring out how to come back to life-giving habits. And that, I think we all connect with the Lord in our own way. So I have multiple friends, and the way they hear from the Lord can be different than the way I hear from the Lord. But it's the way I hear from the Lord, when I just ask him, Lord, what do you want me to know about this? It can be just to be quiet. Lord, what do you want me to know? Lord, what do you have for me today? And sometimes it's praying scripture, and just sitting on a verse and meditating and letting it soak in. And that's helped clear my mind, and that's helped, open up space just for him to speak and having that time to listen. That's just some of the listening prayer I was able to learn just from the time at Free to Be, and then walking into some other spaces with some prayer training and just listening, and being intentional in that and inviting God in. So those are, but praying His word. I love some of the ancients too. Like, it's just fun. Like, just going back to maybe like some different prayers that Augustine, or just, you know, you kind of finding what fits for you and asking God. Because for me, I can sit and pray, and I had a huge imagination as a child. So I was quiet. I was a book, you know, I said I was a book nerd. And God uses that today. And I love that. And that's something I would share. Not everybody will have that same experience. Others might hear something, or maybe it's out in nature, they experience something. But for me, when I pray, He will often give me pictures, like a picture of just how I am sitting with Him. And there's just a few different places that I go and I sit with Him, you know, in my mind, and we talk about whatever we need to talk about. And that's really sweet. And I am kind of passionate about this because my kids, they'll roll their eyes when they hear this part, because I am always talking about what we put in our minds. Oh, yeah. But what we put in our minds matters, because that feeds our soul. It feeds.
Just the way food that we consume changes the composition of our body. What we feed our minds changes the composition of our spirit, our soul. Yeah.
Exactly.
Say more about that. What does that look like for you?
Well, for me, like, that's impacted. I mean, it's impacted everything, and it's been that way for a lot of years. Like, just
ever since Elizabeth turned you on to Christian radio.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. But it is making intentional choices around that. Not trying to be legalistic, because everything is going to be a little bit different in the way the Lord has wired you. You know, like, there was a season where maybe back when I was a new Christian, and, you know, maybe I went out to the bars more with my friends. So going out in that way and hearing that music would make me think a certain behavior, like, I don't want to be that type of lifestyle anymore. So I'm not going to listen to that music. Like, now I could listen to that music and I'm not going to think about, does that make sense? So everybody's different, but I do think, like, what we feed our brains feeds our souls, and they're really connected. And so I do try to be careful about that. And then, but on the flip side, it's recognizing that, you know, God gave us our imaginations and He gave us our minds. And so if we can use them to imagine or see, you know, TV shows or all these other things, why can't we use them to, you know, picture ourselves with Him or in a space, or just, you know, asking Him to give us an impression of what maybe He wants us to know or see or feel, and use all of our senses that way. And that's happened where it is a piece or a knowing or a picture or a word. And and that's special. Like, one time I was, like, we were at one of the women's worship nights, and this was really special because we're worshiping, you know, and in that particular moment, and I had been working through, like, something hard, but as I was worshiping, I felt like the Lord was just showing me, like, some of the different conversations I'd had with Him. And in that, I realized, oh my gosh, I have memories with Jesus. Do you mean? Because over that last, 2 years, in these times of prayer, you know, I connected with Him just like I'd connect with, you right now.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So we can
when you just
remember
said,
this.
I was remembering these conversations, I thought you were going to say with different women who were here tonight. But you said with Jesus, and that kind of blew my mind a little bit. Like, conversations I had with Jesus. But we have that accessible to us.
Yes.
We have full access.
We do.
To communicate with God. And it might sound, if you're hearing this and you're like, what? Just try it. You can test these and practice them and improve on them. And this is something that's not, given to us or not given to us. We can train up on this stuff.
Yes.
And I'm thinking about Rooted, that's upcoming. I haven't read through the book yet, but you have mentioned you've been through a discipleship book series in the past. I have as well. And this is when it gets good, you guys. Totally tune into this, because we will be trained up in this stuff that we don't maybe have a sight on right now or an experience with, or maybe we do, and even still, we can always go deeper, like you're sharing. 30 years of faith, and you still found a way to get deeper. So this is an exciting time.
It is.
for our church family.
I am so excited about Rooted. I am so excited because it takes me back to that discipleship class all those years ago.
You know the power.
I know the power. And so I think it's going to be a really unifying like experience for the whole Grace Church community. And, you know, it'll bring awareness and then opportunities to dig in further to areas that you have questions on. Like it's laying the like table for a deeper relationship with the Lord and with each other. So I think there's going to be a lot of good that comes out of that.
Oh, so good. Well, any final like wisdoms or insights that you want to share with our listeners before we wrap into our song at the end?
Okay. I would just it can be a small step, like whatever it is for everybody here, like at Grace who is newer to Grace, you know, it's just what's that next small thing that you feel like God is calling you to? It doesn't have to be anything big, but just ask him and see, and then trust, like just as much as we can believe the best about each other, believe the best about God and ask him and test him and, see, what he wants to say to you because he's with you.
Yes.
His word says that, and his word is true.
So I'm reading Proverbs right now, and this one sentence just kind of blew my mind. It said, the key, something along, closely quoted here, the key to wisdom is this, : get wisdom.
There you go.
And I was like, that seems simple. Let me dig into that a little further and like get wisdom. Like, don't want wisdom. Don't hope for wisdom.
Yeah.
Go get wisdom. Pursue it. Be intentional. Do the small step. Do the big step. Whatever you need to do. But don't just sit and think, woe is me.
Right.
I wish I this. I wish I that. Christine, I'm hearing her story. And, well, things worked out for her now, didn't it?
Oh, no.
Like, we all still have our journey. So I don't ever want anybody to think, somebody comes on this podcast because they've figured it all out and gotten it all together. I'm still sure there's still a mess behind the curtain.
There is such a mess. But
and dust under the rug,
But there's a sign that I have in my house now after all that. And it says life doesn't have to be perfect to be beautiful. And that's that's what God, he takes us and he loves us and he just keeps pointing us back to him in love. Yeah. And so, that's what, be brave and we need each other. Like that would be, don't like any place where you're feeling lonely, like ask the Lord about that and ask him how to, take that next step.
Yeah. And then take it.
Get it. Take it. Yes. Yeah.
Well, we mentioned some song lyrics earlier, but have you come today with a worship song that either reflects your stories? Just for our listeners, we have a playlist because so many of these stories come, there's so much coolness to these stories, and we put that into a worship playlist that reflects all these stories. So if you're looking for a good playlist, you can look for Unscripted Worship on Spotify. What song would you like to add to the playlist?
Ooh, I'd like to add How You Love Me.
Okay.
That's by Patrick Mayberry.
Okay. Is it, I feel like two How You Love Me. Is it the old version, like How He Loves Us?
It's,
or is it the new one?
No, not that one. It's, let's see, let me think of the beginning of the lyrics. It's like, could it be this easy? It has to do with striving, the years and years of striving. Yes. And that kind of ties in with a lot of my story, that it is that, And then, if I can throw out a Christmas one.
'Tis the season.
All right, can I do the second one since it's
just
close
so you
to
guys
Christmas?
know, Christine is wearing a sweater that says Mary across the front, which I'm delighting in right now. So bring on some Christmas for us.
Well, there's another one, How Many Kings? I think the group is down there, which I haven't really heard of, but How Many Kings is so good.
Tell me more about it.
The lyrics, like how many kings would come down from their throne? How many would abandon their home? For the least, like these. And so it's really good. And it is, I'll tell you, it can go like 6 minutes. You don't have to listen to the whole thing. But when we were, like when the kids were growing up, we would play that one and they would like all dance around and sing it. And
is it like have a beat to it?
It does.
Whoa.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
So it's, but I just like that it reminds us even at Christmas, that Jesus is the king. And he came down. And who would do that? But he did. So I love that one.
He sure did. Well, great ads. Thank you for sharing your story. Thank
Thanks.
you for being vulnerable. It's not easy to do, and it's so important. It's so important. We
It is
see
important.
it. We see it all the time with women that we get to interact with and share. And I think that there's only one reason to not do that, and that's something that we're falling into in that enemy's playbook that we talked about, and that is not what we're here for.
Right.
We're here to share, shine light, and spread truth.
Yes. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, women carry a lot, and we need to encourage each other and lift each other up.
Thanks for doing that here.
Thanks.